Have you ever felt that rush of panic when a disaster alert flashes on your phone? Or when you hear about a massive storm barreling toward your region? Maybe you've stocked up on some canned food, batteries, and bottled water, thinking that'll tide you over for a week or so. But what happens when that crisis doesn't just last a few days or weeks? What if you find yourself stuck at home for months, maybe even years, cut off from regular supplies, support, and medical care? Most preppers focus on short-term needs. Today we're going to talk about the vastly more complicated challenge of truly long-term bugging in. By the end of this video, you'll see why so many people underestimate it, and how you can build a genuine plan to thrive if an emergency lasts far longer than anyone ever anticipated. Before we dive in, let me invite you to subscribe and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. We've got plenty more preparedness content coming your way that you won't want to miss. Also, check out the tagged products listed in the video if you're looking to upgrade your gear or fill in some crucial gaps in your supplies. Now let's get started. There's a common misconception that long-term bugging in is just a matter of buying more cans of food and a few extra gallons of water. The reality is we're talking about entire systems, water, sanitation, medical, security, energy, that you might have to maintain on your own for an extended period. It's not just about survival, it's about staying sane, healthy, and even somewhat comfortable through what could become a societal breakdown or a major disaster that drags on far longer than the typical power outage or hurricane scenario. That's what this comprehensive guide is all about. Let's explore some of the fundamentals to keep in mind. When you're stuck inside your home or a dedicated retreat for the long haul, everything changes, especially your timeline. A few days or weeks is relatively easy to manage. You can rely on stored supplies and ride it out until life goes back to normal. But what if normal never fully returns? Or if it takes many months for utilities to come back online or for grocery stores to restock? The difference between short-term and long-term planning becomes obvious in those scenarios. You can't just have a single closet of food. You need methods to grow more, or at least barter for more when the shelves go bare. Beyond the supplies, there's the psychological aspect. People often cope well in the first week or two of an emergency, fueled by adrenaline and the novelty of living in disaster mode. But over time, confinement, resource limitations, and security threats can eat away at your mindset. You're dealing with the day-to-day grind of cooking, cleaning, repairing, guarding, rationing, and staying motivated. The mental toll is enormous. That's why I want to emphasize that long-term bugging in isn't just about having a giant stockpile. It's about adopting a total lifestyle approach. You become your own grocery store, your own utility company, your own police force, your own doctor's office. It might sound dramatic, but in an extreme crisis, it can become your reality. Understanding that from the outset helps you craft a better plan and, more importantly, calibrate your expectations. For anyone who's never experienced truly long-term isolation or lockdown, the sheer monotony can be surprising. Week after week, month after month, the days blend together. Even if the cause of the emergency is horrifying or dynamic, your daily routine might become repetitive. That's when anxiety, depression, or cabin fever can set in. People underestimate the emotional costs of not seeing friends outside your immediate group, of missing out on regular entertainment, of living with the stress of potential threats outside your home. The first step is to be honest with yourself and with anyone living with you about these challenges. Let's say you're bugging in with your spouse, kids, or a close friend. You want to talk in advance about how you'll deal with conflict, boredom, or fear. You'll need ways to blow off steam. A workout routine, hobbies, games, or even designated quiet times so everyone can have personal space. A daily schedule is incredibly helpful. You wake up with a plan, maybe water filtration checks in the morning, routine cleaning midday, skill building or craft time in the afternoon, and communal meals that bring everyone together. This structure reduces anxiety because you always know what's next. Most of us will use our primary residence as our bug-in location because we can't all afford second homes or off-grid cabins. If you're living in a suburban or urban environment, you'll have different challenges than someone in a rural homestead. But across the board, the first priority is security. If things go south for months or years, desperation might lead to higher crime. Reinforce your windows and doors. Use strong deadbolts and consider security film or boarding. Beyond physical fortifications, keep a low profile. You don't want to broadcast that your home is well stocked because that's only going to make you a target. Climate control is another issue. If the grid fails for a long period, you won't have central heating or air conditioning. Insulation becomes essential. Heavy drapes can help keep heat in during the winter, while well-placed fans, opened windows, or reflective window coverings can help in the summer. You might designate a single room to heat or cool so that you aren't wasting precious fuel or energy on the entire house. Think about curtains, plastic sheeting, or improvised insulation to seal off doorways. If you do have the option to invest in a retreat, choose a place with a natural water source like a well, stream, or lake on or near the property. Defensible terrain is a bonus. Hills, thick bushes, or natural barriers can deter unwelcome visitors. And remember, total isolation can sometimes be a double-edged sword. Yes, you're safer from large crowds, but if you need help, you might be far from any potential allies or medical facilities. You have to weigh these factors carefully. You can survive weeks without food, but only days without water. For long-term scenarios, water is the cornerstone of life. Relying on the municipal supply is risky. If the main breaks, the electricity powering pumps fails, or if water treatment plants shut down, you need backups in place. Start with storage. Many preppers recommend at least 2 gallons per person per day. Multiply that by the number of days you're planning for, and you might find you need hundreds of gallons. You can use food-grade barrels, water bricks, or even large IBC totes if you have the space. Keep them in a place shielded from light to reduce algae growth, and rotate or treat the water periodically to keep it fresh. But stored water can only last so long. For a true long-haul crisis, you need a renewable source. Rainwater catchment systems are often the easiest to set up. Gutters leading into barrels or tanks can provide a surprising amount of water if you live in an area with decent rainfall. Add a filter to catch leaves and debris, and remember to sanitize or boil that water before drinking. If you have a well, great. Just have a manual pump or a solar-powered pump, because in a grid-down scenario, an electric pump won't help unless you generate your own power. Filtration and purification are crucial. Ceramic or carbon block filters remove sediments and many pathogens. Chlorine bleach in the right amount can kill microorganisms, usually about 8 drops per gallon, but double that if the water's cloudy. Boiling is reliable, but it uses fuel, so you may want to conserve that method for emergency batch purification. Solar disinfection in clear plastic bottles can also work if you have strong sunlight and enough time. And remember, every drop counts, so think about reusing gray water for toilets or for gardening. When every resource is precious, water conservation strategies become lifesavers. In the beginning, it might feel great to have a pantry full of food. But in a situation that drags on, you need more than just a big stash of canned goods. You should aim for variety, nutrition, and shelf life. Dried foods like rice, beans, lentils, and pasta can store for years if you keep them sealed with oxygen absorbers in Mylar or vacuum-sealed bags. Canned proteins like tuna, chicken, Spam, or even freeze-dried meats can ensure you're not just relying on carbs. And don't forget about fats. Cooking oil, coconut oil, ghee, or canned butter can be a source of essential fatty acids that help you stay healthy. One of the biggest tips is to rotate your food. If you don't use it, you might discover it's expired or lost quality when you actually need it. Label everything with the date of purchase and the date you expect to rotate it out. Keep an inventory so you don't lose track. And remember to test some of your long-term foods, occasionally for flavor and texture. That helps you figure out if you need to adjust your storage methods. Long-term survival also means thinking about sustainable production. If you have any land at all, consider gardening. Even in an apartment, you can grow herbs or microgreens. If you have more outdoor space, plan for raised beds or container gardens to grow vegetables and fruit. Chickens are an excellent small livestock for eggs and meat. Rabbits breed quickly and offer a reliable protein source. Goats can provide milk for cheese and butter. Even something as small as indoor sprouting can boost your diet with fresh nutrients. And if you're in a region that allows it, hunting, fishing, and foraging can supplement your stores. Just be sure you actually know how. Practice safe and legal methods before a crisis hits. When you do get your hands on extra produce or meats, learn to preserve them. Canning, whether water bath or pressure canning, can dramatically extend shelf life. Dehydration and smoking also work, and they can be done with minimal equipment if you plan carefully. These methods let you stretch whatever you manage to harvest or hunt, giving you a more stable, diverse, and morale-boosting diet. Even if you have a pile of raw ingredients, you still need to cook them safely and efficiently. In a grid-down scenario, a regular electric stove or microwave probably won't be an option unless you have a robust, off-grid power system. Propane or butane stoves are great for short-term use as long as you've stocked enough fuel. Wood stoves or rocket stoves are much more sustainable if you have access to wood. A rocket stove, for instance, can cook a meal with just a handful of twigs compared to the large amount of wood you'd need for an open fire. If you live in a sunny area, a solar oven can work wonders, though it might take longer to cook. And don't underestimate something as simple as a cast-iron Dutch oven over a controlled fire pit. It's a time-tested method that remains effective no matter how advanced our technology gets. The key is having multiple cooking methods in your arsenal, so you're not stranded if you run out of fuel or if the weather doesn't cooperate for solar. When you're cooking, think about the efficiency of your process. Heat retention cooking can save a lot of fuel. You bring your stew or soup to a boil, then place the pot inside an insulated box or wrap it in blankets so it continues cooking with trapped heat. That cuts down the amount of wood or gas you'd otherwise burn. And since you might be cooking inside at times, make sure you have proper ventilation to avoid carbon monoxide buildup. If you have to cook discreetly so as not to attract attention, keep your flame small. Consider cooking at off-peak times, and manage any odors that might give away your location. One of the biggest reasons preppers worry about long-term scenarios is the fear of looters, or desperate neighbors, who might come knocking if food and water become scarce. There's a delicate balance here. You don't want to live in a fortress mentality 24/7, but you also need to stay vigilant. Start with deterrence. Reinforce your doors with metal frames and solid deadbolts. Windows can be secured with security film or boards, and thorny bushes outside can make climbing in more difficult. Motion-activated lights or alarms can scare off opportunistic threats, even if they run on solar or battery power. If you do choose to own firearms, proper training and maintenance are paramount. There's nothing worse than having a weapon you're not prepared to use safely and effectively. Plus, ammunition can run out, so you should also consider non-lethal tools like pepper spray, batons, or even a well-trained guard dog. Always keep in mind that any show of force can escalate a situation, so have clear guidelines in your household about how and when to respond. Do what you can to maintain situational awareness. Keep an eye on your surroundings, possibly from an upper window or a vantage point that lets you see who's coming. If you have a group, rotating shifts for watch duty can help you spot threats before they reach your doorstep. And remember to stay quiet about what supplies you have. Operational security often means not bragging about your large food stockpile, your fancy generator, or your solar setup. The less people know, the safer you'll be. In a long-term crisis, the rest of the world doesn't necessarily vanish. You just lose the convenience of easy updates through TV, smartphones, and the internet if the grid or cell towers are down. But that doesn't mean you're completely cut off. Old-fashioned radio can still be a lifesaver. A hand crank or solar-powered AM/FM or shortwave radio can bring in news from near and far, letting you track weather changes, government broadcasts, or local updates. If you're a licensed ham radio operator, you can communicate regionally or even globally, depending on your setup. Short-range communications like FRS or GMRS radios, walkie-talkies, are handy for coordinating within a small group or neighborhood. CB radios, popular with truckers, might also connect you to people out on the road. And if you do have ways to generate power, keep a battery bank or backup power source to charge devices. You never know when you might want to use a tablet or laptop for stored information, digital maps, or eBooks on survival topics. Security applies to communication as well. If you have a group, set up code words or phrases to discuss sensitive topics. If outsiders are scanning channels, you don't want them to know exactly what you're talking about. And try not to overshare details like your location or how many supplies you have. Stay measured, gather info, and keep your transmissions minimal. In a disaster movie, you rarely see the characters worrying about things like washing their hands or dealing with trash. But in real life, the spread of disease can become the biggest threat when you're living in close quarters for a long period. Stock up on first aid supplies beyond the usual bandages and antiseptic. Think about pain relievers, anti-diarrheal meds, antihistamines, and if you can legally acquire them, a supply of antibiotics for emergencies. Don't forget to keep prescription meds rotated and well-stocked if you rely on them. Personal hygiene might become more challenging with limited water. Still, try to wash your hands thoroughly before eating and after using the bathroom. If water is extremely scarce, use a spray bottle or a small basin. Dental hygiene is also crucial. Baking soda can act as a makeshift toothpaste. If anyone in your group has a special need, like contact lenses or hearing aids, plan for their supplies and backups. Sanitation is a broad category that includes dealing with pests too. Rats, mice, or insects can quickly ruin your food storage and spread disease. Make sure your stockpiles are in sealed containers, keep traps or safe-to-use repellents on hand, check corners, basements, and attics periodically for any signs of infestations. When the lights go out and stay out, you have to decide how you'll provide power for critical needs: lighting, communication devices, cooking, and possibly refrigeration. Even a small amount of electricity can go a long way. Solar panels are an increasingly popular choice. They can feed a battery bank, and you can run efficient LED lights or small appliances. You can scale up if you have the money and space, but even a modest setup can keep your radio and flashlights charged indefinitely. Wind turbines are another possibility if you're in a region with reliable wind. Micro-hydro systems can be amazing for those lucky enough to have a flowing stream on their property. Just remember, each of these systems requires some maintenance and a decent understanding of how to install them safely. For short bursts of power, gas or diesel generators work, but they're only as good as your fuel supply. Gasoline and diesel can be stored, but they degrade over time without proper stabilizers. Propane lasts longer, but requires more space for tanks. Regardless of your approach, think about power conservation. Turn off devices when not in use. Unplug things that draw current even on standby. Make sure you have robust surge protectors, because if the grid flickers back online unexpectedly, you could get damaging power spikes. We don't like to talk about trash and human waste, but ignoring it leads to disease and unbearable living conditions. If trash collection stops, you need a plan. Sort your waste. Compost organic materials like food scraps. Repurpose plastic, metal, and glass. If you must burn some waste, do so responsibly in a controlled space, away from flammable structures, and only if local conditions allow it. Burying trash might seem easy, but you risk contaminating water sources if you're not careful. Human waste is trickier. If the toilets can't flush due to water or sewer outages, consider a composting toilet. A simple setup can be made with a bucket, sawdust, and proper ventilation. In rural areas, a well-dug pit latrine is an option, but place it far from water sources. Chemical toilets, like those used in RVs or on boats, can work if you have enough chemical treatments. Whichever method you choose, you must keep it hygienic. Cover waste properly, disinfect surfaces, and be mindful of where runoff might go. Proper waste management can mean the difference between a livable space and a breeding ground for sickness. When you're hunkered down for a long time, things break. You'll need to fix that leaky pipe, mend clothing, maintain a generator, patch a window, or address vehicle trouble. A well-stocked toolbox becomes essential. Basic hand tools like a good hammer, screwdrivers, pliers, wrenches, saws, and a multi-tool are just the start. If you can manage some power tools that run off your battery bank or generator, a drill and a circular saw can save you a ton of time. Always have supplies like nails, screws, bolts, wire, rope, adhesives, and lubricants like WD-40 or silicone grease. If you rely on a specific appliance, stock spare parts. That could be spark plugs, belts, filters, or fuses for your generator. Think about your vehicle too. Extra oil, coolant, a tire repair kit, jumper cables, and maybe a spare battery. If you have to rely on a skill you don't have, say advanced plumbing, see if you can trade labor with someone who does. Because you can't learn everything overnight, but you can prepare the basics and know who in your network might help you with more complicated tasks. There's an old saying, no man is an island. Even when you're bugging in at home, having a network or at least a few allies can be the difference between success and failure. There's more strength in numbers for security, shared labor, and emotional support. Maybe you have a friend who's great at mechanical repairs, and you can trade them some of your preserved foods in exchange for their expertise. Maybe a neighbor is a nurse who can help with medical needs if you help them with water filtration or gardening. If society really takes a massive hit, money might lose its value for a while, and barter will come back into play. Think about items that hold universal appeal: salt, sugar, coffee, alcohol, tobacco, and medicine. People also trade skills. carpentry, sewing, dental work, mechanical repairs. Building good relationships before a crisis hits can lay the foundation for these networks. Of course, approach it with caution. You don't want to reveal all your supplies or your level of preparedness to just anyone. Trust and discretion go hand in hand. Here's a key point that often gets overlooked. Life can't be all about doom and gloom, especially in a long-term survival situation. Constant vigilance is mentally draining. Having something to look forward to, whether it's a game night, a movie night, if you can power a small TV or laptop, or a special meal, can lift everyone's spirits. Books, board games, and craft supplies aren't just luxuries, they're emotional lifelines. If you're in a group, rotate the tough jobs. Maybe you find guard duty stressful. If you're on watch every single night, that'll wear you down fast. Distribute responsibilities so no single person gets stuck with the most grueling tasks all the time. Carve out personal space wherever you can. That might mean turning a small room or even a closet into a retreat for a few hours so someone can read, meditate, or just decompress. Tensions can easily flare when people are stuck together 24/7 in a stressful environment. Communicate openly about issues before they explode into bigger problems. Practice makes perfect. Even if you think you have the best plan in the world, run drills. Turn off your circuit breaker for a weekend and see how you function. Shut off your water supply for a few days and rely on stored water. Simulate a security breach scenario. How quickly can you respond? These tests expose weaknesses in your plan that you might never notice otherwise. After the drill, talk it over with everyone involved. What worked? What didn't? Adjust and improve your approach accordingly. It's much better to discover a glaring hole in your plan now than during an actual crisis. You've just taken in a whole lot of information about the real challenges of long-term bugging in. It goes way beyond a few extra cans of soup or a spare jug of water. It's about developing a self-sufficient lifestyle that accounts for water collection and purification, food production and preservation, security against potential threats, maintaining good hygiene and health practices, managing waste, generating or conserving energy, building up your tools and repair skills, fostering community ties, and most of all, preserving your mental and emotional well-being for what could be a truly extended crisis. If you found this helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Also, check out the tagged products listed in this video's description. They can help you fill critical gaps. Thanks for watching, and remember, being prepared isn't just about stashing supplies. It's about equipping yourself with the knowledge, skills, and mindset to stay resilient when the world around you becomes uncertain. Stay safe out there.